Oh, yesterday I was talking to this guy that I've been talking to for like a year. He like pops up, pops out, and sometimes we'll just talk, but it's like weird because we're not in a relationship, never will be in a relationship, and never will talk to that man again. I blocked him yesterday because it was like he was always telling me that I was so woke and I believe in this stuff, and he was a big time Trump supporter. But the thing is, he's the type of person that Trump would complain about. For some reason, he couldn't have a full time job. He worked part time. He was pushing 40. He was renting out a room. And in the year that I've known him, or I only met him once, but in the year that we talked, he moved at least 4 times. And then currently, because there were a few times where he tried to come to my house, and he's like, oh, let's hang out at your house. And I'm like, why? Because each time he wanted to hang out in my house, it seemed like he was a hobosexual. Because it's wintertime and they say it's hobosexual season and you're looking for a place to live. He never said he was looking, but he wanted to come to my house, and it's like, why? And then he would send me like dick pics, and it's like, I don't know why you're sending me dick pics. I never said I liked your dick, and it was kind of small. But the thing that went overboard was he kept making comments about white people and not liking white people. And I'm like trying to understand because it didn't make any sense to me. Because anybody with common sense looking at him, they would be like, that's a white man. He has white ancestry. And he's like, well, my family speaks Spanish. He's like, I'm not white. My skin might be white. I'm not white. And all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, have you done a DNA test? I'm pretty sure it's going to come back where you're probably mainly European. And he's just like, my family speaks Spanish. And I'm like, is this guy really that stupid? I'm not the best in history. I did not always pay attention, study, but I sat in class long enough to know that Latin America was colonized. And most likely, if you're white and you're in Latin America, you either came over after the Holocaust and your family was fleeing the Holocaust, trying to avoid going to prison because they were probably guards and stuff, or if you came from somewhere earlier, your ancestors were probably from Spain, unless you're in Brazil, and they were probably from Portugal, and Spain and Portugal are considered white European. They speak Spanish and Portuguese, and he's like not acknowledging any of that. And it's like there's a lot of colorism in Latin America, because it's like you just look at the TV, it's like I don't see very many Latino people that look like that are on Telemundo, Univision, and everything. Yeah, most of the Latino people I see are short and brown, and sometimes taller. But it's like, and it's like he's not even claiming to be indigenous or anything. He's just like, I'm Latino. And it's like, I don't get that. It's like, I understand, like, you say you're Latino because you don't know what race you are specifically because of colonization, but I don't get the whole, like, racism thing, because you're most likely black, white, or native, unless your family came from somewhere else, because I know a lot of people immigrated from, like, Europe after the Holocaust, so there's a large Jewish population in South America and North America and Latin America, Central America, and everything. Because, like, the president of Mexico is Jewish. And the president of, I think, El Salvador is Asian, of Asian ancestry, Middle Eastern. And it's like, why? And then, like, Shakira is, like, Middle Eastern. Salma Hayek's Middle Eastern. But they identify with the country, because it's like, okay, I understand that you identify with your country. It's like, you're from Mexico, you say you're Mexican. That's not your race, that's your country, your nationality. It's not your ethnicity. It's like, I get that. I accept it, because it's like, to ask you what your race is and stuff, it's like messed up. But it's like, certain people, it's like, you can't look in the mirror and tell that you're white. Because, like, when I see people on, like, YouTube and they have, like, the Latin DNA test, and it's like, if you're black in Latin America, it's like, yeah, you know you're black because everybody's telling you you're black. It's like, you say you're Latino, it's like, yeah, no, you're not, you're black. And it's like, I don't get it. And like the weird thing is, I have tons of Latino friends and everything, and it's like I've never hear them say stuff like this guy who's like so pro whatever and stuff. And it's like everything you're pro is against you. And I'm not a Trump supporter, I'm not a Republican, I'm not a Democrat, I'm in between. I go whichever way makes sense to me. And some stuff Trump says makes sense to me, some stuff Democrats say makes sense to me. It all depends on the topic and what you're saying. I don't agree with any one side more than the other. They both have good points, but then lately Democrats have been saying some dumb stuff, and then it's like, I don't get it. Like, it's like you're supposed to be fighting for people's rights and passing laws and stuff. But like when that Democratic senator, he was like, I think they said like 25 hours he was just talking. It was like, what was the point of that? Who was that helping? You were just attention seeking. And yeah, so this guy, he's like a big Trump supporter, and he's like, oh, I'm a Democrat, I believe in this. And it's like half the shit this guy's talking to me about, it's like I've never heard of, because he was like telling me about like trans people for Palestine and all this stuff. It's like, it's stupid, but I can understand it, because it's like they're being like discriminated against. And they're like, they don't want them to be discriminated against. But also, if you went there, they hate you. So, but I understand the right to whatever you want. And I think that was the general purpose of whatever the group is for. It's like, do I believe in it? Whatever. I don't know. I never really heard about it, except for when this guy, he comes to me and he tells me all this stuff. Because it's like, he's looking this stuff up. Because like one time he was telling me I need to read the Bible. And then he gave me a Bible quote. And then he started talking to me about Jehovah. I'm like, are you a Jehovah's Witness? And from all the research and religious texts that I've read and that have been read to me, only time I've ever heard Jehovah was when the Jehovah's Witness Bible was read to me. And then when I looked up the Bible quote he gave me, it was from one of the Jehovah's Witness pamphlets. But he says he's not a Jehovah's Witness, and he said he doesn't believe in that. And then he went off on a whole rant about hating Jehovah's Witnesses. But you gave me a quote from one of their pamphlets, and he went off. So this guy, he would have like outbursts, and I'm thinking like, maybe I can help this guy not be so racist. So I kept giving him chances. And then he went off on me because he doesn't even speak Spanish, and he looks like a white man. And his name is not overly Spanish or anything, where it's like, yeah, I know a lot of white guys with that same name. But he's like, I'm Latino. My family speaks Spanish. It's like, why don't you speak Spanish? And everything. And he's like all about this hate. And he's like, oh, people living off the government benefits. But he gets Medi-Cal and he gets government subsidies and stuff. But he's like, oh no. And then he's like a recovering alcoholic and stuff. And it was like, okay, let's not judge. Let's be nice and everything. Because he's supposedly religious, but he only spreads hate. And he's racist, and he has something racist to say about every group. He has something except Latino people. And it's like, if he went into a place and there were like a bunch of Latino people, they would look at him as a white man. He looks like a white man. He has like no melanin at all. And it's like, huh. And then the funny thing is, I'm the one that speaks Spanish. He doesn't speak Spanish. And then he went off on me on a rant yesterday because I was just joking with him because I'm like, oh, this protest is annoying. These people are making people late for work and everything that work on the weekend. And they're like, yeah, so it's like annoying. And like people that have places to go, it's annoying. They're blocking stuff and all this. And I'm just joking because he'll text me and like, oh, you're into this. I bet you're out there. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. I'm a little old for that. When I was young, I might have went out and did something like protest at the war. Because it's like, I don't want anybody to die on either side. It's like, talk it out. But I'm older and I've seen enough where I'm like, yeah, I'm not going out there protesting, doing anything. And it's like, I don't really understand this No King's Day. I've been busy. I don't understand it. And from the stuff I've heard, it's like, I'm not trying to get out there. Even though I know in my area, like, nothing really crazy is going to happen. It's mainly, like, elderly white people that are out there protesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's like in my area, you pretty much only see elderly white people. But I saw two Japanese people protesting, and that was interesting. Because it was cute. They had balloons and stuff. It was, like, peace and love, and everything was cute. And, yeah, I love old Japanese people. Yeah. And then he likes, because I was saying at my old job, like my coworkers, they were all Latino women, and they would always offer me food because we'd have potlucks and like people would bring in food, and like customers would bring in food and stuff, and they're like, here, you can have this, a celebration, thank you. And everybody would always ask for Asian food. They were like asking for pho, like sushi, and like all this kind of stuff, Asian food. And these were all Latino women. And they're like from Latin America, like real, like hardcore Latina from Latin America. And because it was funny, because at my job, we all spoke Spanish. Everybody spoke Spanish. And they'd have all this stuff. And then he's like, oh, Latin people don't eat this. And it's like, all the Latin people I know eat hella Asian food. Even when they're like straight from Latin America or they've been here a few years, everybody eats Asian food. And then like I have friends that are Asian, of Asian ancestry, that they acknowledge because their parents immigrated to Latin America. And they eat Latin food, they eat Asian food, they speak fluent Spanish, everything. And I'm just like, because also, even though there's colorism and all this other stuff in Latin America is pretty much the example of what the world should be. Everybody should get together, love one another, and be together. But like the colorism in Latin America is like the issue. But otherwise, the love one another, get together. Because it's like everybody's mixed in Latin America, either black, white, native, something, and probably now Asian and stuff. And it's like Latin America's example where anybody can do anything, live up to it. That's why I don't really understand like the migrant wanting to come to America. And I would think like if your neighborhood's bad, move to a better neighborhood. But Latin America is like the country with like all the countries, so much diversity, like Mexico, Venezuela, Guatemala, Argentina. Well, maybe not so much Argentina, because I always hear like racist stuff in Argentina, and I hear that like a lot of people from the Holocaust went, the soldiers and stuff went down to Argentina, but then like Paraguay, and then like Brazil. But then I can understand why, because I hear about a lot of crime in Brazil, but it's like such a beautiful place, beautiful culture. And then like pretty much all the Latin countries, they have African influences. And it's like, I love the music. I love the Caribbean. I love the steel drum. And it's like, I have no hate. I was raised to love everyone, treat everyone the same. Who cares who you love? Just find someone to love. My parents would tell me, who cares if they're black, white, Cuban, Asian, whatever. Just find love, be happy, have that person treat you right and everything. And it's like, I hear people and it's like, religion doesn't matter. All this stuff I was taught, love who you love, whatever. Don't care about what others say, but make sure he treats you right. He's not abusing you and all that other stuff. And then I hear other people, like they'll say, oh, they have to marry someone of their race. They have to do this and everything. And it's like, maybe my parents just taught me different, to love whoever. If your friend invites you to a religious service, whatever, whether it's a mosque, synagogue, Catholic church, Baptist church, whatever, it's like, go, whatever. Because like even when I was a kid, my well, not my parents, because they were like, why are you lost, whatever. But if you have a problem, call the police. And then like my uncle, he would always say, if you get lost or something, you can always call the police and they'll bring you home. And it's like, I listened to all that and it was true. I love whoever. And then like this one thing that I keep hearing about online and stuff, how people like fetishize other people, and it's like they waste their time. But then when it comes down, because I hear this with like white men especially, it's like, oh, you'll date a black girl, you'll date a Latin girl, whatever, you'll date an Asian girl, but then when it comes down to time to get married, then you go find a white girl to marry. And it's like, that's messed up, but then that's kind of playing out in the media right now. Because it's like that girl, she's being like harassed and made fun of and all this stuff. And it's like she wasn't perfect, and I'm sure she acknowledges that. But the way she's being treated isn't nice. But that guy, it was like crazy. And it's like so weird. I've gone out because this guy, he told me I need to go find a white man because of whatever. And then it's also his name and everything is not overly ethnic. He looks like a white man and he has white privilege, but he's messed up his life so much, it seems, from what he said. He can only get like gig work and part-time work, like manual labor, because he had like DUIs and arrests and all this stuff. And the crazy thing is he's a big Trump supporter, which is crazy because he's like all for ICE and stuff, and he's like his grandparents were immigrants. And I personally feel it's like, okay, if your grandparents came here illegally, and like your parents were born here and then you're born here, you're citizens. So it's like basically you should not be talking on immigration, because unless you can find your grandparents' papers, you should not be talking about people should be deported, because it just sounds wrong. Because it's like, how do you know your grandparents came here legally? Because back in those days, nobody checked, nobody cared. It was like if somebody was pissed off on you and they wanted to do something, then they might, but otherwise nobody cared. And it's like, I can find my grandparents' papers and other people that were here. And it's like, I have no issue with it. As long as you're not harassing people, hurting people, or anything, everybody's here, there's space. And that's the weird thing is like, I don't have tons of friends anymore that are illegal. Or actually, my friends, they probably weren't illegal. But I have friends that I know that are illegal that have said it. But then I haven't seen them in a while. Because I know I had one friend that was talking about he was getting deported. But then I heard ICE was around in like my area. But I heard it like in 2 areas near where I live, ICE was around. But then like I never heard anything else. But I don't think they picked up anybody. But also, I think they're making a bigger deal out of it than it is, because ICE has been around a long time. Because I know when I used to go to my old job, like when I was really young, they were like, ICE was there. And it was like, ICE would go, I don't know where it was, because it wasn't at my job, but my coworker, she was like at her other job, that ICE was there and picked up a bunch of people. Because I guess they were picking up people from Haiti or something, like years ago. And I was young, and I didn't really think much of it because I didn't know what the hell ICE was. And I didn't know what illegal immigrants were for a long time either. Yeah, because like when I was a kid, I remember I used to watch the news, and the news was like so scary because I didn't understand what they were talking about. And I was a little kid, and they were talking about aliens. And I'm thinking, like, because I watched so much sci-fi and stuff talking about aliens, and the news are talking about aliens. And then I'm like, they're saying we're being invaded by aliens. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I'm scared. So I'm thinking shapeshifters and all this kind of shit. And then I get older and I realize, oh, that was what they used to call immigrants back in the day. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Because I would hear like killer bees and illegal aliens. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? It sounded like something like scary. Kind of like Sharknado or something. But instead of sharks, it was bees and aliens. Yeah, because it's like you don't hear crazy stuff like that on the news. Like, well, you still hear crazy stuff on the news, but now it's more understandable because, like, back in the day, it was like, are we invaded by aliens? And I'm thinking from outer space. Yeah. But, yeah, this guy just went crazy, and I'm like, what the hell? And then he went off on me, and then he started talking about black people, and then he's like, oh, it's because he's saying all this racist stuff, and I'm like, I don't understand what's with all this hate for white people, because it's like, I get there was slavery and stuff, but in general, not everybody's family enslaved people, and some people came from Europe. And like, I know I was talking to this one guy one time, and he was like, his family, they were slaves in Belarus, and like other people who were their family were slaves or indentured servants and different things around the world. And it's like they've learned to forgive, move on, and it's like happened so long ago, like centuries ago. But I do understand, like, if I lived in the South, I could understand it more with like the issues, but I don't live in the South. And then, like, I saw something and they were talking about like these families that glorify that their families have owned their land for like over 200 or 300 years, and their plantations where they had slaves and people buried in their backyard. It's like when somebody's praising that and glorifying that, it's like, okay, I can understand if you don't really like these people. Because it's like one thing if you have it, you're ashamed of it, you want to distance yourself from that legacy. But when you're owning that legacy and there's no apology with it, it's like, okay, I get it. But like people that immigrated here that had nothing to do with slavery or anything in this country or another country, but like I can understand if people have issues with people like white people from South Africa, because like apartheid like just ended like 30 years ago, and they're like things have not gotten better there, so it's like I can understand that. But or if like somebody from Germany was saying crazy stuff, it's like I can understand if you don't like them. But pretty much a lot of the stuff around the world, cause like slavery around the world in most places has ended like a long time ago. Or but then like I can understand if like you're Jewish and you don't like people from Germany or something, or Poland or wherever like the Holocaust was. It's like I can understand that, because people from the Holocaust are still alive, and the people who oppressed them and enslaved them and all that horrible stuff, they're still alive. So it's like I can get that, and it's like I don't agree with it, but then also I think it's like, why does Israel have so much hate for Palestine? And it's like, in modern times, before all this current stuff happened, it doesn't make sense to me. I would think like the hate is like a little misdirected. It's like, why don't you hate Europe? Yeah. So it's like things I don't understand, but like that guy, he would just like freak out and say all kind of racist stuff, and then he was like, oh, that mixing shit is nasty and stuff, because I was like, you look like a white man, and I'm like, I don't get the big deal. I'm like, I'm part white, I have white grandparents. And he's like, oh, that stuff is nasty, it's like you people do that and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay. And then he went off on, oh, you have a white woman's name and all this other stuff, and I'm just like, okay. People name their children what they want to name their children. People name their children because it's pretty much a country ruled by white people, and you basically have to fit into the mold, and the easier your name is to say and the more simple your name is, you have a better chance at employment. Because there was even, I guess you'd call it a documentary or a movie, I think it was called Freakonomics, where they're like, the more ethnic your name is and the harder your name is to say, the harder chance you're going to have to get a job. Because if your name is something that's really hard to say on the paper and you're not like just outstanding, people aren't especially if it's not someone that has seen that name before, you're not necessarily going to be called, because it's like, oh, I don't want to call this person because I don't want to offend them, because it's like, I don't know how to say their name. It's like, I can attempt to say their name, but it's like, I don't want to offend you, so I'm not going to even bother. But it's like a whole thing, and it's like, that's the way some people feel. And he was upset by my name, and it's like, my name, it represents all my culture. It's like my first name is a European name, and I have a last name that's European, but also I have European ancestry. I have a lot of European ancestry. I have some Latin, I get not really Latin and well, I guess so, because I have family from like the Caribbean, and then I had a DNA test that I had ancestry from Mexico, but I also have Spanish and European ancestry, and I speak Spanish to some extent, not as good as I used to, because it's really hard to find people that speak Spanish for me to talk to on a daily basis, so I might not speak Spanish for years at a time. But I just felt the hate that he had, and it's not even like anything has happened to this man. And just when he told me his name, I was able to look him up and see, and it was like this man went to private school and all this other stuff, where it's like he should know basic stuff, because from the school that he went to, I know people that went there, and it was like a good school and a private school. And he's just batshit crazy. And I think it's also mental health issues that's wrong with this man. But it was like, I tried, he was racist. I tried to change him, tried to help him and show him that not everyone is the way he expects. And then because it was like weird, because like when we first started talking, I thought he was joking, because he was telling me I should wear a wig and trying to tell me that I need to straighten my hair and wear it down. And I'm going to wear my hair however I want and however I feel. And he had issues with that. And he's like, oh, when you're with me, you need to do this. And it was like he was trying to act like an alpha male when he had a homeless man's budget. Yeah. Yeah, it was just like toxic, bad, and it was just like over the top. And it's like, why is this man acting like this? But then when he went off on me yesterday, it was just like, okay, I'm done. And because like he uses racial slurs, because he started calling me racial slurs and stuff, and it's like, okay. And it was just like crazy. And then like also he said something like a while ago, because he was telling me like his father was sick and he has Medi-Cal, because he told me he had Medi-Cal. And then it's like, why doesn't your father have Medi-Cal? If he's so sick and he hasn't seen a doctor, why don't you get him Medi-Cal so he can get treatment or something? And they're like, oh, I have to take care of him. And it's like, okay, this sounds pretty damn stupid to me. And then it was like he was moving around, and it's like, oh, why don't you go live with your father or your mother? And it was like, oh, his mother and his father, they broke up when he was a kid, and his mother started a new family, and I guess his father started a new family or something, and I guess his father ended up alone, but I guess he wasn't allowed to live in his mother's house because he probably wasn't the child of the man she was with or whatever. And it's like, huh. And then he also has issues. But it was like, oh, that's crazy. Yeah. And then we both had surgery recently, but I had my surgery first. And then I was telling him about my surgery, and he was telling me about his, and like how he was in pain and how he had no help, no medication, nothing. And like they weren't that great at the place. And I'm like, oh, before I had surgery, they gave me a spa. I mean, not a spa, but they gave me a massage. Before I had surgery, I was able to get a back massage and stuff, like a full body massage. And then like they gave me like muscle milk and stuff and all this other stuff. And I'm like, I had a good experience in my surgery. It was really great. And he's like, yeah, he didn't really get all that and all the nice stuff that I got before, after, and during. And he was just left in pain. And it was like, yeah, I was like, I didn't have any pain. I felt fine. I had a great time in my surgery. And we had the same surgery, pretty much, except mine was more complicated. But pretty much the same surgery. And he was like upset. And he's like, why was yours so good? I'm like, because I have good insurance from my job. And he had government benefits, like to a government clinic. Yeah, and I was like, because I even suggested getting like a third-party insurance, because you don't get insurance from your job, because you only have a part-time job, and then you get benefits from the government, but you don't like it, you can go and buy it. And he didn't even know how to buy insurance. He didn't know a lot of like basic stuff, that like adults should do. Like if you fall on hard times, you can go get government benefits and different things. And he was like, oh, I'm not into that. I don't believe in the government. But it's like you get government benefits. Medi-Cal is a government benefit and stuff. And it was like, if you're on hard times, I believe like the government is there to help you. And then it was weird because when he said his father was sick and he didn't have Medi-Cal, and he was like, oh, he didn't have any insurance. I'm like, didn't you apply for him to get disability or something? Because if he had a job and he got hurt or sick or something and he was working, he'd get disability. And then I don't know, it didn't make sense, like his father didn't work or something. And then it's like, okay, you didn't get disability that way. If your father's that sick, why didn't his doctor tell him to apply for disability through the government for like when you're like disabled and you end up being disabled where you can't work anymore at all, and it's not like a recovery disability. And then he was against that too, and Medi-Cal and everything, and seeing doctors. But it's like, you're so sick, why wouldn't you have your father go see a doctor? And it was like, this whole thing didn't make any damn sense to me. It just sounded stupid. And that was another big red flag. Because like throughout this, there were red flags. So like the first time we were supposed to meet, he was supposed to be coming to see me and meet me somewhere. And he's like, oh, because he's like, oh, I grew up here. This is my city and everything. And I'm like, okay, meet me on this side of the city. This is where I am. And then he's like, oh, I got there almost halfway. It's taking too long to get there. And he was on the bus. And then he's like, oh, and I'm sitting there waiting for him after work. And then he's like, oh, I changed my mind. I'm not coming. And he was like, oh, I have social anxiety and stuff. And I'm like, okay, why didn't you say that in the first place? And then, like a few weeks later, he's like, okay, let's meet up again. And I had the day off. So it's like, I went to go see him and we hung out, and it's like his back pocket on his jeans were like ripped, hanging off. And it's like, okay, this is odd. And he was just like acting kind of weird, but he wasn't acting as crazy as he was. He was like more calm, not really wanting to say anything. It's like all the crazy stuff he says to me is in text. He didn't say to me in person. And he acted like he was scared. Because basically, from stuff that he said, he gives off like incel vibes. Like incel hobosexual. But it's like, I don't know how much of a hobosexual he is. Because he at least rents out a room, he says. Because I doubt he's in a relationship. And yeah. But he's like really into the Trump thing and stuff. And it's like, I know Trump supporters, and the ones I know, they don't really say stuff like that. They don't say stuff like the stuff he says. It's like crazy and off the wall. Where, yeah. And it was just like, when I met him in person, it was different. But then we like hung out for a bit, and then he's like, yeah, because I took him to the health food store, and it's like, oh, he was like, he didn't know about this, but it was like, he said he grew up in that neighborhood, and that store has been there like 50 years. And it's like, you never walked to this side of the neighborhood, but you said you knew the neighborhood so well. And it's like, okay, that's weird. And then he was like critiquing the stuff that I was buying in the store. And then shortly after, he's like, oh, I have to go take care of my dad. And it's like, why don't you get him help? And then I was telling him about in-home support services and stuff for him to, where he could at least get paid, or his siblings or somebody, or they could get an outside person to come in and take care of their father. But he was against that too. And it's like, okay, this is weird. It's just weird to me. Like the whole thing. Yeah, but when he went off on me on the racist stuff and everything, and it was like, he liked me, he would tell me, and he would send me like dick pics and stuff, and all this stuff, and it was just like, yesterday, it was just like, okay, this is getting too far, and it's like, because he also made threats to me, and cause I'm like, why are you so abusive, like, almost a year ago? And then he's like, if you want to know what abuse is, I can show you. And I'm like, okay, you're verbally abusive. Now you're threatening me with physical abuse. And I haven't seen this man, and we didn't talk for like months. And this was like last December. And then he contacts me again in May. And then we've been talking off and on since May, and he went crazy this last time, and it's just like, I'm done. I blocked him. Yeah. If you like, watch and subscribe to hear more of my crazy stories. Oh, and I met him on OkCupid. If you like and subscribe, bye.